Welcome to the e-learning platform of Directorate of Higher Education Uttar Pradesh. This is very first lecture on literary criticism that we are going to start today. When we talk about criticism, the most important questions come in our minds. Why criticism and what is criticism? How much it is important, and what is the objective of criticism? The most important thing is, what is the objective of the criticism? Literature is a sea. Literature is, a kind of idea that exists and that reforms the society. But what criticism does with the literature, the most important factor is this: criticism selects, distills, and finds out what is truth, what is apt, and what is good for society. There are so many texts in the world. There are so many, poems, epics, and essays, um, dramas. They exist, and they all are doing something for the society. But criticism selects the best for the society, for the academia, and so that what happens, Hamlet is a drama which is best known drama in literary world, and which is a drama on that so many essays, so many commentaries have been done after Bible. It means it is second to Bible, next to Bible, where critics have talked too much. That is why I have selected a topic, literary criticism and introduction. Today we are going to talk about what are the important definitions, what are the important elements of criticism that define the perception, the critics way of thinking. My first slide is definitions and meanings. The very first thing that I'm going to talk about, it is criticism is an evaluation of literature, analysis of literature. It evaluates literature, it analyzes literature and selects the best one. And just like we have so many tragedies, we have so many essays, we have so many poems, but critics select what is best for the society, what is best for the academia. Second point, that it promotes what is the best for the society, and just like drop by drop we find that what is good, how we can perceive, how we can create a touchstone for the society, for the so that society can find a good path. Critics do that, critics perform that, critics nominate that, critics define that. And without criticism there is no possible landmark that can create a stored house of all good texts. And just like without such analysis we would not find great writers like Homer, Virgil, William Shakespeare, John Keats, William Wordsworth, T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, W.H. Auden. There are so many writers. How have we reached there? How have we defined them? How have we explained them? It is the work of all these parameters have been set by the critics. They select, they define, they promote, and they evaluate the text. On the basis of that evaluation, on the basis of that promotion, what happens, that we set a parameter. And Plato, the great the great writer, he can be called the first critic. He wrote all his texts in poetry, but when it came to literature he denied it. And as a critic he denied the value of literature. And when he denied on certain grounds, on the ground of, on the ground of education. His main aim was to set an ideal state, and in that ideal state he wanted poetry not to exist. He wanted literature not to exist, because as per his own notion, he had idea that poetry will make, people emotional, weak. But one thing that he set, one thing which he selected, one thing that he found, the most important thing, that he allowed divine poems, he allowed hymns which sang the greatness of gods, which sang the the beauty of, the valor of, the power of God. He wanted, the divine. He said that divine existence is the perfect one. There is no imperfection. So a poet, a writer, should always, appreciate them, should always praise them, should always, explain them as a perfect one. And there is a, praise divine madness. He allowed a kind of divine madness, and there is another word which he gave for such kind of, you can say, psyche, that is frenzy. It means a poet who appreciates God, who sings the beauty of God, the valor of God, the power of God, that can be called, that can be, you can say, called a frenzy, madness, divine madness. And he allowed such madness. He said that poets can exist in his ideal state who have the power to sing the beauty of God, the perfection of God, and gods are always good and perfect. So he defined them accordingly, and he said only divine madness, a poet who has that kind of power and zest and stamina, only he can exist in his ideal state. Otherwise, poets will not be allowed. Now, writer who second writer who, you can say, defined criticism indirectly is Aristotle. Aristotle never defined it in a direct manner, but he wrote a great book. Its name is Poetics. Poetics is parameter. Poetics is a book which sets a parameter of Western aesthetics. It is divided in 26 chapters, and it talks about all the genres, all the sections of literature, and it defines criticism in an indirect manner. In his great book Poetics, he calls it an analysis of literature. He calls criticism an analysis of literature. One more thing that I want to remind here, that Plato had denied the value of poets, the value of the writers, but it was Aristotle who brought them back, who said that literature is the most powerful subject. Literature has that capacity. It mirrors the society. It mirrors the society. Plato had said that literature is twice removed from reality. But Aristotle said, no, that is not true. Literature, is mirror of the society. Literature copies, literature gives truth, value, power, understanding that can change the panorama of the society, panorama of the mind, panorama of, you can say, wisdom, and it can pave the path to humanity that can reach to the highest position, to the sublime position. And it was Aristotle who brought this particular, you can say, notion, idea, philosophy. And when he brought that, you can say, that denied literature on the earth, he defined it also. And in his great book great book Poetics, he said that, criticism is an analysis, especially based on the forms of genres, elements like plot, character, and theme. And the most important thing, that he did not, only appraise literature in just like a simple manner. He divided all the genres, categorized them on the basis of their elements, and then he made a chronology, a kind of, you can say, stepwise of genres based on values. So what happened, that he selects drama as the most important genre of literature. Why drama? What was so much important about it? Because drama is direct representation of our emotions. And in drama, he praises tragedy and calls it as the highest form of literature. Why tragedy? Why did he, select tragedy as the highest form of the literature? Because it captures the suffering. It captures the soul of human, mind. It's a voice. And all the great kings and queens, all the, characters, from the simple character to the top rankers of the society, he, he described them, he evaluated them, and he put tragedy as the highest form of literature. He places epic on the second position. Overall, he restores literature that was criticized and denied by Plato. And for him, literature is the most important thing. And it is this very notion is a critical one. It a balanced one. In this particular notion, that drama, or I may call it literature, has that value, is not a simple one. It is a kind of criticism. This is a kind of evaluation. This is a kind of, you can say, notion that we can put under the category of criticism. Once we are going to put under the category of criticism, it means he defined the criticism. He found a kind of voice for criticism, and his whole, you can say, complete book, Poetics, is a kind of, you can say, a kind of landmark in the world of criticism. Matthew Arnold is another Victorian poet. He, wrote an essay, The Study of Poetry. And Matthew Arnold defined literary criticism in his great essay, The Function of Criticism at the Present Time. Matthew Arnold was a great moralist also. He wrote another book, Culture and Anarchy, in which he talked about the perfect society, and society that is, you can say, beyond the anarchy. So his criticism has touch of moral objective. It means somewhere he leads, he defines criticism that will lead us to the moral perfection. And he defines it as disinterested endeavor to learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world, and thus to establish a current of fresh and true ideas. The most important thing is, he says that it is disinterested. The very word disinterested is not simple. When he calls it, you can say, disinterested, it means, why criticism can be called disinterested? Here, interest does not mean to be personal. It means, disinterested means balanced one. The evaluation should be balanced one, should be impartial, should not be personal, should not be subjective, but it should have, objective destination, objective philosophy, objective idea, objective, you can say, thinking. Disinterested endeavor It is a kind of attempt to learn, to find out, and propagate, to promote. Propagate means here to promote, to tell the best that is known and thought in the world. How beautifully he defines criticism. What is best in the world? What is good in the world? What is, you can say, the most balanced in the world? What can reform the society? What can reform the minds? That is, you can say, the best that criticism finds out, that criticism seeks, that criticism selects, that criticism distills, that criticism stores, and then that is, I can say, and we can say, that you can say it, criticism propagates the best that is known and thought in the world. It means from the very beginning up to now, whatever is good, criticism finds out that. Criticism provides that. Criticism, stores that. And what is best can be beneficial for the humanity. Arnold says that criticism does not lead us to destruction. Criticism leads us to the construction. And without, if there is no purpose, if there is no such purpose, in the mind of the critic, then certainly that is not the proper criticism. So a critic must have all these thoughts in the, you can say, society. Sometimes when we see the current situation, modern society, and we see so many deviations, so many turns, that people are in anxiety, people are, you don't feel, they lack emotional touch. Why do, such things happen? Because sometimes we don't have great critics. We must have great critics. They lead us to the right path. And the last clause of this definition is thus to establish a current of fresh and true ideas. It means we are, we are taking something from history. At this, we are taking something, the best from history, and then making it fresh in our simple words, in our simple language, and then we are providing that same fresh idea to the current society, to the present society, so that change can be normal, change can be accepted, and change can be beneficial. And his other, points of views are just like a criticism needs to be free from historical and personal grudges. As per the notion of Arnold, a critic must not have historical and personal grudges. Suppose that a critic judges a text on the basis of his personal grievances, personal problems, then would it be called a good criticism? Would it be called a good, you can say, notion? Not at all. It means that, just like based on the historical facts, if he judges a text, then certainly that would also be not good. That would also kill the sole purpose of that text. It means a text is free. It is disinterested, objective, and must be judged in a disinterested manner. Must be judged in a disinterested manner. So a criticism must convert world into the better, so that the best ideas prevail. A criticism must convert the world into the better one, so that the best ideas prevail. It means a critic is a criticism, or critic is, you can say, a converter. It converts the society, it converts the people, it converts the, you can say, ideas. And when it converts, it leads us to the better position, and there is no chance of going down, there is no chance of departing from what is good, there is no chance of deviating from what is right. And always it gives us options of good and evil. Criticism defines, finds out what is good, just like the definition given by Matthew Arnold. I am going to repeat it: a disinterested endeavor to learn and propagate the best that is known and thought in the world, and thus to establish a current of fresh and true ideas. A critic, in a third point that Arnold talks about, a critic or criticism leads the society towards the current of fresh ideas so that morality and creative power may establish powerful society free from anarchy and cultural crisis. Though culture is a kind of, you can say, continuous entity, it goes on, it it believes in progress, it believes in commingling, it believes in change. Yet there is one fear which is always there in the mind of the, you can say, critics and thinkers, that society may not reach in the anarchic position. Once society is reached in the anarchic position, it means there is some problem. It means the role of critics have not been performed well. So the sole objective of a critic, that is to find a society, establish a society which must not be in anarchic position, which must not be in a destructive position, which should not be, in a position that can be questioned. Always, there is one chance that once we have good critics, when we have good thinkers, then they select the best texts for our academic world, for our educational purposes. Then we, after reading them, we find the fresh ideas, we find the true ideas, we find the proper ways, and we reach in a, you can say, a perfect world, and that perfect world changes everything. Now, the last point that he talks about, criticism is bound by poetic truth and poetic beauty. Now, that is the most important. It is bound by poetic truth. And what is poetic truth? That great masters have said in the great books, just like Homer wrote Iliad and Odyssey. And there are some quotations which talk about the happiness of human race, the suffering of human race. And those quotations, those lines are the parameters of, poetic truth. They change, they lay down pedestal on which, human mind find quite, intimacy. And whenever we read those quotations, whenever we go through those lines, we feel as if it is about us. Even after 2000 years, once we read Homer's Iliad and we see Odyssey, struggling in the great sea, what happens? We correlate our suffering, our, ideas with the suffering, with the fight, with the struggle of Odyssey, Ulysses. And even today, there are so many writers who have written poems on, on this idea. If we read them, if we see their valor, their, you can say, strong mindedness, we find a kind of inspiration, a kind of a kind of motivation that will not let us down. So, as per the notion of Arnold, what happens, that criticism must be bound by poetic truth and poetic beauty. It must have good form also. It must have good, the selection of best word also. It means language of good text must have, a proper setup. It means you can't say a simple thing and call it, the literary beauty. You must have that kind of a standard, and standard must be compared, should be compared with the great writers of the great periods. So what happens that criticism must hold that beauty. In my next slide, I T.S. Eliot, the great modernist, the great, you can say, we have studied his poems, the Wasteland, the Wasteland, which is called the a kind of preamble of 20th century. It means literary preamble of 20th century. And he has written so many essays, so many books on the, you can say, idea of criticism. He wrote two essays. One was the function of criticism, and the second was the frontiers of criticism. These two essays are the most important. Those students who want to study what is the sole purpose of criticism, how we can define them, they must study these two essays, because these two essays are guidelines of the idea of criticism. So, he says the commentation and exposition of works of arts by means of written words. It means he defines criticism as the commentation and exposition. It is a kind of commentary and exposition of works of arts by means of written words. By means of written words means whatever is written. He is not talking about history. He is not talking about personal emotions. He is not talking about personal grudges. He is talking about the written text on the pages. It means written words on the pages. Whatever is written on the pages, that can be called, that can be evaluated, that can be appreciated, that can be judged, and that can be, you can say, analyzed. And whatever is being done in this, that is a kind of criticism. Criticism, a kind of exposition of art. It discloses the door of art. It means it discloses the idea of art. Arts means text. By means of written words, it means whatever is written there. Now criticism promotes understanding. Now, again, he is coming closer to the idea of Matthew Arnold. And he is coming close to the idea of Matthew Arnold when he says criticism promotes understanding. When he says criticism promotes understanding means if a critic evaluates something, then it, you can say, from there emanates a kind of understanding, a kind of wisdom, a kind of mindset, a kind of idea that will better the society. Literature, by means of criticism promotes understanding. Literature is an impartial object that fulfills enjoyment. Criticism finds out that literature is an impartial object. It is not, literature cannot be partial. Literature cannot be judged with the notion of partial. It means a critic must be impartial. A critic must have that kind of, you can say, notion that literature should be judged on the basis of impartiality. That is why he has also talked in his great essay Tradition and Individual Talent about the impersonality of a writer. If he talks about impersonality of writer, then certainly a critic that evaluates that text, a critic that talks about that text, must have that kind of impersonality in his mind. Otherwise he will not do justice with the text. He will not do justice with the evaluation and analysis. Now it is elucidation of works of art and correction of taste. Now just see that how T.S. Eliot is going to talk about the correction of the text. The correction of the text means, correction of the text means it selects and tells the society which text is the better one, which text can be read, which text can be can have good knowledge. So that is what happens with the text. With the taste, a critic or a criticism must have that kind of position, that kind of value in which he finds out the truth, the idea, and corrects the taste of the society. He turns the mind of the society towards the good text. If we even today read great poems of Wordsworth, okay, when we read Lucy poems, when we read Tintin Navy, why do we read them? We read and recite daffodils. Why do we read them? Why do we turn our mind towards them? Because somewhere they give us, they provide us solace, they provide us beauty, they provide us truth, and they correct our taste and turn towards something which is good, perfect. So T.S. Eliot also mentioned that criticism corrects our taste, I would call it. It corrects our taste, and the purpose of criticism is to find some common principle. The most important thing is common principle. It means common theories, common way of life, and common, you can say, common ideas that can set the clock of human world, then can correct the clock of human mind, then that can correct the, you can say, the human heart. It means there must have common principle. Criticism must be impartial and objective. Criticism that draws meaning from the words without reason are lemon squeezers. The most important term he has used, lemon squeezers. It is he mocked many critics, or the group of the critics, through this word. And in modern world there are so many theories, and when once he saw them, once he found so many critics defining the words written on the text in a different manners, and even the root meaning was not there within the text. Root meaning was different than what many critics wanted to impose on the text. He called them lemon squeezers. Lemon squeezers means drawing, it means inferring and analyzing a text in a very different manner, and even the analysis and the implication of their ideas, of their meaning, is not there in that text. Somewhere he found all many critics were deviating from their positions, and once he saw them deviating, he called them lemon squeezers. And that is the most important factor, that is the most important notion of his criticism. So a critic must not be lemon squeezer. A critic must not draw wrong meaning from the text, must not impose his own meaning on the text. A critic must have freedom. A critic must have some kind of, you can say, some kind of impartiality, impersonality, some kind of, you can say, value. That is what a good critic does. Criticism and critic, somewhere they are similar. What a critic does becomes the criticism. So in that way, both two notions come together. When we have seen from Plato up to now what criticism can be defined, what criticism can be called. Criticism provides a pure analysis, a pure knowledge, a fresh knowledge, a great knowledge that can be seen by the society, and that can be appreciated by the society. Without it, you will lose the true hold, true pillar of the society. In these thoughts, we can also refer some great, just like John Keats. John Keats, talked about is a kind of negative capability, and in that negative capability also there is a sense of personalitylessness, there is sense of greatness, there is a sense of impersonality, and critic seeks that, critics reaches to that level so that the society can understand the value of literature. It is criticism that defines the value of literature. It is criticism that opens the mind of the academia, the intellectuals of the society. And once criticism does this, society finds the true nature of a literary text, true nature of our educational world, true nature of, you can say, literary world. So that is the criticism. Thank you.